So welcome back to another show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So today I want to talk about Ratan Tata. So we've known Ratan Tata as a towering figure in industry, a captain of trade and commerce, and we also know he's one of India's remarkable philanthropists. Can you tell us more about his early life and how he became the captain of India's industry?
Yes, sir. There has been indeed, the nation has been grieving for a captain of the industry. And the most touching part is today the topic of discussion in the media and among people is not so much about how the Tata empire grew under him, but about a side of compassionate capitalism that Ratan Tata came to represent. And people are recalling his love and concern for dogs, particularly street dogs, and love and concern for his employees, for those who worked with him, and also for his bold decisions, willing to take risks, and for his contribution to what is called reverse colonialism, in the sense that he was buying companies which were owned by Europeans, he was buying brands which were considered very much European, and then he also tried to provide the first cheap car, which was also a safe car. So a man who was willing to experiment with so many things and whose own rise in the Tata Group was not one of silver spoon, because he was not among the favored lot in that whole Tata family. Nobody knows. It's not a well publicized fact that he was not direct descendant of the Jamshedji. His father, 𝗏𝗏 Tata, was adopted from 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗏𝗏 orphanage in Parel in Bombay in 1980. His grandfather did not have sons, so they adopted 𝗏𝗏, his father, and subsequently also he was gradually groomed. He was given good education. He was sent to Cornell. He came back and made to start from where anybody else from that position would start. So he was first shunted to Jamshedpur, where we worked in Tata Steel as a manager, and from there gradually rose. So man, despite belonging to that family, being adopted in that family, he moved up the ladder. So consequently, he picked up some values which have been synonymous with the Tatas. One was ethical business and trying to do quality work. At the same time, he also imbibed what his great grandfather and grandfather used to always emphasize. And he was guided by his grandmother, who taught him that the Tatas never flaunted their wealth. That is why the people used to say that his only indulgence was probably he liked buying some good shirts and trousers and suits. That's all. Otherwise, he was not known to flaunt wealth, or like the instances of some of the top captains today. Their marriages, these are all talk of nothing like that. It was understated. And also the fact that in the growth of the Tata empire, his contributions, because he was there after JRD Tata passed away, from 1991 to 2012, when he held the entire Tata empire, head of the Tata sons and rest of the empire, you saw the Tata Group making foray into several fields. And for instance, in 2000, they purchased the 𝗃𝗏 tea, British brand. That was a very, very big decision. Then you saw in 1998, which is again, there is a story behind it. He bought the luxury brand Jaguar and Land Rover from Ford, because there was a time he wanted to sell Indica to the Fords, because the Indica was not doing well. And that time, the Ford even chided him. Miller Ford, I think, chided him, saying, "Why did you get into car business if you had no knowledge of automobiles?" And look at the irony of fate. He bought Jaguar and Ford were from Ford, because they were cash strapped. And as one enters the Tata house in Bombay, the guiding philosophy has always been good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. And somewhere along, Ratan Tata came to stand for a perfect example of gentlemanliness. Today, everybody who has interacted with him, they all talk of his gentleman approach, including his close friend 𝗍𝗵𝗶𝘀 𝗍𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗏. She also called him, the best gentleman she has met. So here was a man who was controlling a very powerful empire, and he had his own share of battles. The most difficult period was for him to get Cyrus Mistry out, when it was he who had picked Cyrus Mistry as chairperson of the group. That was a long legal battle. And Cyrus Mistry accused Ratan Tata of lack of governance ethics, lack of governance ethos, violation of corporate governance rules. And finally, the matter went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court exonerated Ratan Tata. There were other battles also, you see. When J.R.D. Tata was there were three people who were running the Tata Group. For instance, 𝗓𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗍 controlled Tata Steel. Then you had 𝗓𝗫𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗃 who was controlling the Taj Group of hotels. They were running their own empire, and of course you had 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗃 who headed the Tata Chemicals. And they were not consulting J.R.D. Tata or anything. They were running their own empire actually. But when Ratan Tata took over after J.R.D. Tata, he wanted to bring synergy and he wanted to bring more control of these companies under Tata and Sons. So there was a long battle between Ratan Tata and 𝗓𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗍𝗃, Ratan Tata and 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗃, and Ratan Tata and Ajit Kerkar. And one by one they had to leave. This was a period which was often held against Ratan Tata, saying that he had got all these people out in a very nasty manner and things like that. But then, because all these personalities, 𝗓𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗍𝗃 himself, they were also considered great corporate wizards. Or even Ajit Kerkar or 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗃, they were all themselves. But at the same time, in the later years, that is a time when popularity of Ratan Tata actually spread. Anybody could approach him easily. He himself found it most exciting to interact with young people. Under his dynamic leadership, they had financed more than 60 startups. And some of these startups were very, very interesting startups.
Yeah, Ola is there, Snapdeal is there.
And they were digital platforms. And there was even one startup called Goodfellows, which encouraged the older generation of corporate leaders and younger minds to interact. And he also loved to interact with young people and constantly encouraging them, giving positive cooperation to them. And of course, the most famous is how he appointed the youngest GM of Tata Trust, which was a 30-year-old person named Shantanu Naidu. And yesterday, people saw, even today, when the body was taken, the hearse was taken from 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏, from the hospital to 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏, there was one gentleman riding a motorbike, a Java motorcycle bike. And that was none other than the Shantanu Naidu. Shantanu Naidu, who is the youngest general manager of Tata Trust. And he got very close to Ratan Tata in the years, because he had approached Tata with this concept of, having, putting reflective collars for street dogs, because they were getting killed on the streets. And a reflective collar would help motorists to avoid the dogs. And Ratan Tata encouraged him, and their friendship blossomed between a 75-year-old Ratan Tata and this, I would say, 25-year-old young person. Ratan Tata encouraged him to study abroad and wanted him to join after he completed the course. What has actually struck is, of course, there were controversies like Radia tapes and things like that. There was allegation that Tata Tea, in Assam, they were even accused of sending money to 𝗪𝗲𝗪 militants. And there was also a lot of complaints about the condition of tea workers working under the Tata Tea Company. They were said, but overall, one gets a sense from the reaction that is coming from so many people that here was a man who was a humane person to the core, who believed in basic values. He carried forward the philanthropic spirits of the Tata Group, right from Jamshedji Tata's time, they were philanthropic. And he took it forward, donating funds. And Tatas were the first to donate to political parties with the through check. So, before the electoral bonds came, Tatas were one, they would give a check. He gave check to all parties, smaller or bigger. And payment was by through check, not through any other means. And it is said that Ratan Tata was lonely at the top. Some books have also written that closest to him were not people, but his dogs, mostly street dogs. And he even refused to accept an all-time lifetime achievement award from King Charles, who was then Prince Charles. saying that this one of his dogs was ill. So he cancelled that program. And sir, in 2021, there was a lot of clamor that Ratan Tata should be honored with Bharat Ratna. There were several appeals. The messages went viral, and particularly, I mean, they wanted him to be honored because of his philanthropic work. When it reached gusto, Ratan Tata himself stepped in and requested people not to take forward this campaign. He said, I have got enough from this country. The love of our countrymen is more than enough. I don't need any. Today, Maharashtra cabinet formally have adopted a resolution urging the union government to accord him Bharat Ratna because of his contribution and standing and of his pride that he brought to India's corporate world. Pride that he brought to the India's standing as a country which was emerging as a manufacturing country, a country with great corporate ideas.
Sir, there is criticism that he also funded the anti-India voices. How do you see that?
Since he believed in encouraging a number of groups, it was not he was funding them because they were anti-Indian or anything. He believed in helping a lot of people, and he believed in encouraging new startups and new groups. See, he was having problems over that Nano car project.
Nano. Yeah, Singur. The whole Singur story revolves around Ratan Tata.
So in 2008, he shifted it, his 1500 crore Nano project from West Bengal to Gujarat. After Chief Minister sent him an SMS, West Bengal government refused to hand over the 400 acres of land which they had promised because of agitation. And Nano project was very closest to heart, sir. Even behind Nano project, when he used to travel in his car, he was constantly used to look out of the window of his car and see small family, perched on a scooter and rather riding dangerously through the streets of Bombay. That is the time he wanted to, work on a project that would give a cheapest car but safe car. He went to his engineers and asked them to design a car whether a scooter could be converted. The only person who responded favorably to it was the Munjals of the Hero, Motor Corporation of Ludhiana. They were willing, but then they realized that scooter technology could not be evolved into for car. They had to do it from the scratch. So that's how Nano project was born, that a car for 1 lakh that is safer for small Indian families. I mean, every idea behind him was, like they say, sir, all successful corporate ideas have always kept humans at heart. See, any corporate growth or any big corporate story comes from when you try to fulfill the needs of the society. And Ratan Tata believed in that. Rather than chasing bottom lines and profit margins, Ratan Tata believed in pursuing things in a way where ultimately the society benefited. And today, equally a successful corporate captain, Infosys, Narayana Murthy says that he learned capitalism with compassion from Ratan Tata. See, that is the kind of truth that has come to Ratan Tata. And everybody feels that this man was truly great, truly humble, and a man who believed you may have billions in the bank. After all, under his command, company grew to something like $100 billion. It was a behemoth. Tata Empire, $100 billion. So you can imagine the size and the financial resources of this. But despite that, he felt he was grounded to the earth. He was a corporate giant, but remembered for his gentle manners, his very civil approach, and a man who believed that business rests on trust, business rests on honesty. I think that's the message that is coming in the personality of Ratan Tata. And it is no surprise that the whole day the media has been, focusing on his life, his achievements, his contribution. They have been interviewing people who were touched by him. And I think no other business leader has got so much of tribute as Ratan Tata got today.
He was known for his passion for flying aircrafts. So tell us more about that.
Well, sir, there were two things he was passionate about. One was driving a speedboat off the sea. In fact, he had a house close to the coast, and then there was a house where from there he used to do often relax in a PA. And the other was the passion for flying was right from the start, like J.R.D. Tata. He used to fly frequently, and then when Tata's entered into defense manufacture, he even sat in an F-16 aircraft. And ultimately, I think what the biggest contribution to aviation was, he took back Air India back into the Tata fold. Because Nehru's time, that the JRD Tata had to lose Air India. Air India was taken over by government.
Was nationalized.
And the full circle, it came full circle into JRD Tata, and it was decided that Air India should be purchased because Air India had grown out of size, huge liabilities, huge debts, and with new professional managers, as Air India is trying to do now, is trying to get back to the old glory of great service, and a service with passion, a service with a brand name that meant a lot for all Indians. And that was his one of his last decisions, that Tata should acquire the Air India because Air India was losing heavily, and that was a big thing that he did.
Okay, sir. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.